Harmony, oh harmony, your music to my ears. You fill me with woe from head to toe, but you take away all my fears. Oh harmony, you are so.
Hi, welcome back. I know I've been absent from this channel for a while. I honestly don't really know what's wrong with me sometimes. I've been doing really well for the most part. I've had some lower back issues that have just kind of broken my stride in a lot of ways, but like mentally and everything, I'm doing good. Like sometimes I drop from this channel for a while because I'm going through bad times, but I just feel really busy and tired lately. Anyways, I've been terrible, and I appreciate your patience. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the most recent episode of Severance, and just because this has been kind of a more divisive episode, and if you've been following season 2, I think the season in general has been a little bit divisive, but I think it's been really strong still. Not as strong as season 1, but still really good, and it's really hard to follow up a season like Severance's first season because it is just so incredibly perfect. From start to finish. It just builds to all of its major reveals so expertly, and it takes its time, but especially if you thought it was a little slow the first time around, if you rewatch the first season, I think you'll notice that there's just so much going on with that season that is absolutely phenomenal in the care and the craft they put into building this story into what it becomes by the end. Which just in the final 3 episodes or so of the first season is this rising tension that culminates in just these huge jaw-dropping reveals and cliffhanger, and it's just kind of perfect. Whereas season 2 has to follow that act. That's pretty tough. Season 2 has been really strong. A lot of second seasons for shows that start as strong as Severance don't. Just the thing of Westworld, it just doesn't hold a candle to the first season of Westworld, the second season and on, to the point where I would say, it would have been better off as just one season. Same with Yellow Jackets, which I think had an incredibly strong first season and then just has devolved in season 2 and 3 into a show that doesn't even really understand what tone it's supposed to have. Season 2 and 3 are often goofy, campy, and just nothing of that same sense of this ominous dread that you felt in season 1. So season 2 of Severance maintains the tone, maintains the aesthetic and the production quality of the first season. But I think it's just such a tough act to follow season 1 because you did already have these big reveals. And of course, this is a mystery box show. And those are always tricky because often the mystery itself is more fun than the reveals. And the biggest reveal of this season, I mean, I think there's some big stuff earlier on. During the Ortbo episode where they go outside into the Woe's Hollow and Irving reveals that Helly R is in fact Helena Egan and she's pretending she's a mole. That was an intense episode and I thought it was really excellent. Other people have said, that's where the show went off the rails, whatever. I really enjoyed it and I think they did a great job with it. But the biggest reveal came this past week in Sweet Vitriol, which is a reference to ether, which was originally called Sweet Oil of Vitriol. Kind of a fun little reference to that in the title. But even the week before, which was the big Gemma episode, where they kind of show what's going on with Gemma down in the research hall below the Severance floor, the research floor, whatever it's called. That was interesting. I don't think it was a huge reveal because we already kind of knew that they were doing some kind of weird experiments with Gemma. We already knew that from season 1. We just didn't know the extent of it. And we still don't. We didn't really learn how she got there. We never saw what happened. Did they kidnap her? Was she part of it? Did she agree to something? Did they make some bargain with her? And you never really learn that. We see some of her life with Mark before and their difficulties conceiving a child and having a baby and coming, and all of that. But we don't really learn anything huge at that point. But we do kind of learn a huge thing in episode 8 when Harmony Cobel returns to the town of Salt's Neck, which is her hometown, her place of birth, and the place where she was. We discover a child laborer at the ether mill. Lumen has is like the worst version of corporate America, right? It's not only this sort of terrifying corporate entity, but it also employs horrible things like severance and child labor, and apparently does human experiment. I mean, really, I think the entire severed floor is just one big human experiment, right? They're not really working. They're being experimented on. They're test studies. But we learn in this episode when she returns home, which was filmed in Newfoundland. I've actually been to the area where it's filmed, though I wasn't there when all the icebergs were in the water. But it's a really cool area of Canada. And I recognized right away, I was like, okay, that's Newfoundland. And that looks like Bonavista, which is partly where that was filmed, the Bonavista area. But we learned that Cobel, in fact, invented Severance. And this is something that has been very divisive. When I first watched the screener for this weeks ago, because I've already seen the whole second season, and I've already seen it, and I've seen it for the last, as I finished it a couple months ago. But when I first saw this episode, I felt very conflicted about this revelation, and I still do. Having watched it again and seen the reaction online, I'm not the only one. A lot of people have a little bit of a problem with this. A lot of people didn't like this episode for other reasons, because it was, whether you want to call it a bottle episode or not, it was certainly an episode that sort of, the second episode in a week that takes the main story and puts the brakes on it and then tells this side story. So we'll call it a side story instead of a bottle episode, since that's apparently very controversial to say. But this is a Cobel only episode. And I think that this is creatively a mistake, because I don't think it's really smart to completely halt the trajectory of your season in the second half of the season with 2 episodes devoted to telling a side story. The Gemma and Mark episode the week before, and then this episode this past week. Both have many qualities and things that I liked, but both also have completely stalled the main story for 2 whole weeks now. And even binging this with my screeners, I felt the pacing really grind to a halt in a way that never really happened in the first season. That kept building, whereas this one kept building through 5 episodes. Even with the Ortbo episode, which was kind of out there. But even with that, the first 5 episodes really built up and then just slammed on the brakes for the 6th and 7th, or the 7th and 8th episode. So really the first 6. I'm getting my numbers all wrong. I'm not a math guy, okay? But this is a lesser problem to me than the revelation that Harmony Cobel is the inventor of Severance. Why does that bug me so much? I have been struggling with this, and I've been questioned on it, and people have wondered why this bothers me so much, but some of the other big revelations in the show don't. And I think I am getting close to the answer, but I don't know that I'm fully capable of expressing it yet. But what I think at the core of it, what I really like about this show is that by and large, for the most part, this is a story about ordinary people encountering extraordinary events, right? Mark, Irving, and I'm going to say Devin, but it's Dylan. These are men who are severed, and they're in this weird severed floor at the mercies of the Lumen cult. They're just ordinary guys. I mean, we don't really know a lot about Irving's backstory, and it's possible that he's some kind of investigator or special ops guy, or, that he's been sent in to investigate, and that could be interesting in its own way. I don't know. But for the most part, even Mark and Gemma, even though their story is extraordinary, her death faked, basically kidnapped and brought down to be experimented on, and then Mark's severing, and then it's an extraordinary story, but they are just normal people. They were just a normal couple, teaching at the university. They're not like this special person. The only one in the group, in effect, who is kind of a really important person is Helly, because she's Helena Egan. But that works because that adds a really interesting conflict and a really interesting twist to the story as it's established. And we really built up to that in season 1. All of the big revelations in season 1 were carefully constructed, and that season took its time building up to those revelations. That Mark's wife is still alive, that Helly is in fact an Egan, and so forth. Those things weren't out of left field. They all made sense. By the time that they were revealed, it all clicked together perfectly. But the reveal that Cobel is the inventor of Severance doesn't work the same way. And it sort of changes the nature of this cast, of this group of characters, because now we have this super genius in Harmony Cobel. She is the inventor of Severance. She is that's the origin story of Severance, is her story. And I know you can make it work. You can make it work, right? This is how she knows. This is why she's at Kier headquarters, like Lumen headquarters in Kier, right? That's why she's in charge of this super important severed floor where they're doing this mysterious Cold Harbor experiment. And that's why she's so closely involved with that. It's why she knew how to get the chip out of PD's head, and so on and so forth. You can make it all work. It fits with her own backstory that they introduced this episode, where she was, a child worker and numbed her experience with ether. And she wanted to create something where, workers wouldn't feel pain, and it all works, right? But I don't like it still. I don't like that she is now this really important person, because I liked her character the way she was. I think Cobel / Selvig, Miss Selvig, the Colvelbig, as Rickon puts it, I think she is such a good character as this fanatical middle manager type who's running the severed floor, spying on Mark, who is a devout follower of the teachings of Kier. She lives the 9, all that stuff, and then has a crisis of faith. That all is good enough. It doesn't need to be embellished further by giving her the backstory of being the creator of Severance. And in fact, I really prefer the idea of Severance being a technology that is not really fully explained. This goes to the same concept of the Force in Star Wars. The Force was a mysterious concept in season 1 of Star Wars, in the original trilogy. And then George Lucas felt the need to explain it in the prequel trilogy. And so we learned all this mechanical, sciencey stuff about how it worked. And then the Force was way less cool, right? Some things are worse when they're explained. And I feel like there's something lost when Severance is given an inventor. I don't care who that is. I didn't want to know if it was James Egan or if it was Cobel. I just wanted Severance to be this part of Lumen that we don't really have to know where it came from, how it came about. That's not important or interesting to me. And now we have that. Now it's Cobel who created Severance, who created the Glasgow block, who created the overtime contingency, all this stuff. It's all her brainchild. And then, then Lumen stole it from her and she couldn't take credit or she'd be banished. This just changes the fundamental nature of the show and of Cobel herself. And it takes this idea that we're dealing with all these very ordinary people in an extraordinary situation, and it turns it on its head to some degree. I was trying to think of another thing that would bother me in a similar way. And I think if we learned that Mark Scout was actually the son of someone, his dad was murdered by the Egans, or had some deep dark past with the Egans, and now he's on a revenge hero quest type thing. I think that would bug me too. I much more that it's actually that he's sort of just tied to it with his wife being kidnapped. That's enough. That's a big story as it is, but it doesn't give him this deeper past with Lumen that is meant to tie it up in a bow. And it just bugs me, and I'm going to deal with it. Okay. I'm going to accept it. I'm just going to say, okay, hopefully the writers and everyone involved, Dan Erickson and Ben Stiller and everyone involved is smart enough and talented enough that they're going to make it work. But I spent 3 years rewatching the first season over and over again and came up with, my impressions and my feelings about these characters and where they fit into all of this. And something about this reveal, which is just out of left field, which feels, I don't know that it was tacked on in season 2, that they were like, oh, let's make Cobel this, maybe it was the plan from the beginning, but I think they needed to do more to get to that point to make it feel earned. And I feel also it just changes Cobel into this different character, fundamentally different character. And I don't like that character as much. And we'll see where it goes. Devin has called Cobel to come help them. And this is another thing that the more I think about it, the more I'm bothered by it, because I understand why Devin didn't want Rigabi to continue to reintegrate Mark, because it looked bad. I mean, and Petey already died from this, and Mark's not looking so hot, right? So I get why she wanted to put the brakes on that. but why did she want to call Cobel? Like they don't really know what's going on with Cobel at this point. I mean, they suspect that, yeah, she left and she's not part of, you know, that aspect of Lumen anymore, but they have no idea. Devin has no idea if she would actually help them, or as Ragabi says, turn them in. And certainly Mark, I mean, both of them were literally betrayed by this woman who spied on them, who pretended to be a lactation expert, right? Who lived right next door to Mark and lied to him on a daily basis. And then who knows what they don't know what she's doing inside of Lumen. And really she was kind of a tyrant in there, right? So that strikes me as a little odd that Devin would just turn to that so quickly. I do like that Devin thought of the birthing center and how there's a severed, like, birthing cabin. That's a great idea. And I think they could have honestly had her and Mark try to infiltrate that without getting Cobel's help. Or maybe they tried that first, or maybe they just did something else with the story to get Cobel back into their lives in a way. Like, she turns back up and is like, hey, like, screw these guys. I want to help. Like, I'm okay with Cobel turning to the good side, away from the dark side, whatever. I'm okay with that. But it all just feels like they're not really putting it together in as finely crafted a way as all the stuff worked in season 1. And that's unfortunate. I still think this is a great season. I think that it's still continuing as one of the best shows on TV. I'm excited to see what you guys think of the last 2 episodes of the season. I have seen them. I need to rewatch them because it's been a few weeks, a couple months. It's been a while. And I do think that they are much, much stronger than the last episode was. And I do think that people will be happy with the way this season ends, though it's not as good of an ending as season 1. And I can't say anything. I don't want to spoil it, but I really am not sure where they go from here. I'm really not sure where they go from where they end this season. So, but I'm excited. I mean, I finished this season and I liked it, and I'm excited for season 3. I don't think it's going to be Lost. I don't think it's going to be one of these shows that really just falls off the edge or jumps the shark. But this sort of thing, this reveal, which felt a little tropey, a little overly Hollywood to me, making, a character that's already well established have this other, more important backstory, that kind of worries me a little. So let me know what you think of season 2 of the Harmony Cobel reveal. Thank you for putting up with my lack of content lately. I don't know. Sometimes if I don't feel like I have anything to say, or I don't feel like saying it in a way that would make for an engaging video, I just don't say anything. And that's kind of where I've been at. Excuses, man. Okay. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Peace.
Oh, harmony, you are so bright, you glow. You fill me with dread in my heart and my head, now that's frolic in the snow.